How are you doing? Welcome to live stream number 160. Today's topic is an overview of the cloud using CAD in the cloud. Super excited about that. I'm going to answer some good questions. One of the questions I got is there really unlimited storage when it comes to Fusion 360 in the cloud? And yes, there is. And we're going to cover a couple of other things. And I think I'm going to show you maybe one or two features that you maybe didn't even know existed. All right. I can see that we already got people on here. My name is Lars Christensen. Thank you so much for taking the time to watch these daily live streams. Today is Thursday. It's May 17th, 2018. And like I said, we're going to get in and kind of talk a little bit about the difference between the cloud and how Fusion is handling the cloud. Hopefully giving you a pretty good overview, pretty good understanding how the whole thing works, and some of what I honestly believe are some of the great benefits. So let's get into it. So opening up Fusion here, pretty straightforward when you download Fusion. Be aware of that your login when you sign in, you can sign in and out. If you sign in to Fusion, your login, your Autodesk ID, that is the magic bullet that will open up what you have stored in the cloud. So if you go to another computer, and you can install Fusion on as many computers as you like. If you go to another computer and you log in, then you will see the files that is available in the cloud. They will be then available to you. So one of the things that I just want to make sure that I clear up here, Fusion is kind of a hybrid, meaning that when you install Fusion, it does install a client locally on your computer. This is a fairly light client compared to a lot of other CAD software out there because Fusion is utilizing the cloud for certain things. We're just talking about this generative design where things are solved in the cloud. Of course, all your files are stored up on the cloud too. They're actually stored two places. They're stored locally and they're stored up in the cloud. Now, like I said before, there is no limit on how many Fusion files you can store up in the cloud. At least not yet. There is a limit to how much other stuff you store up in the cloud. And what I mean by that is if you watched last night's live stream on Facebook, I modeled up this Lego block and I had kind of like this PDF. And you'll see this PDF here is actually living on the cloud. You can upload other stuff up to this, like Excel spreadsheets and other things. There you have a limit of 500 gigabytes. But standard Fusion files, you will never run out of space up there. At least I can only imagine that, at some point you might, but like right now, Autodesk don't have any loft on how many files you can bring up there. So the way it works with Fusion is that it will store up in the cloud, and that's kind of like what we're looking at right here. All these live stream files that we have collected over this time, they are up in the cloud, but they are also stored locally on your machine. And that means that you can actually go offline. So if your computer, if you're not connected to the internet or you choose to go offline, you click up here on the clock, you actually click working offline here. If I toggle that, and now I don't have access to the files up in the cloud, but I have stored locally. I can still go in here and open up last night's Facebook file here. I can double click on that and then open that up inside of if I double click on it maybe. I can open that one up inside of Fusion, and I can work with it. I can make changes to it, and I can even save it, and it will just save it locally. And then whenever I go back up to connecting to the cloud, either because you're traveling or whatever, or you choose to go back up, then everything will sync up to the cloud. Now, it's all great that, like I said, that you can store as many files as you want. But one of the problems that I have had in the past using CAD is if you're storing them locally, it ends up being a lot of space locally, and you maybe don't have that much memory. So that's one of the things about Fusion. You have unlimited space up in the cloud. Now locally, you can control how many days you want to save locally. So you can set a timer. Let me show you where that is. If you go up and click on your name, and you go to Preferences, and in here you can set an offline cast time period. By default, it's 15 days. That means that the last 15 days of parts that I've worked on right now is stored locally on my computer. A file that I have not touched the last 15 days has been cleared from my hard drive locally, but of course, as long as I'm connected to the cloud, I can actually go, I can go and grab it. So one way to show you how that looks like is if I go back to go offline, you will see here that things over in my data panel looks pretty normal. But if I start scrolling down, you will see some of these parts here are actually grayed out. Some of them are not, but these are grayed out. These are parts that are over 15 days since I have had them open in the software. So these have been cached out. Now, as soon as I go back online, now these will clear up because now I can access them again. Now, and of course, you can change in the preferences depending on how much you want to store, 30 days, 90 days. You can change that there so you can kind of like control how much is stored locally. Also, two other things. You can, of course, save as a local file. Like if you want to do a backup that is actually a file you're holding on to, if you go and click here, you can go out here and you can export, and I could now save this file as an archive file to my computer, in this case a desktop. So if you want to save a backup like that. Another thing that you should know about this in here is that if I click up here on the help, on the little question mark, there is also a clear user cache data. So I can actually wipe whatever is stored right now locally in cache of the computer. And this is super helpful that, you go to a customer's, for example, and you do some work, you're logging in with your user ID, which means that now suddenly his computer has turned into kind of like your computer. And then when you're done working and you kind of like you can just clear the cache and now it's like you were never on that computer. So that is absolutely super helpful. Now, I also just want to make sure that I clear any questions in regards to import and export, because I get some questions about that from time to time, and how does that work with the cloud. Normally, if you're opening up a file, let's say we did this the other day, we brought in a SOLIDWORKS file, for example, you will use this upload button right here in the data panel. By the way, you can turn the data panel, hide it or show it here. If I click this upload button, click select file, and if I go out to my files here, you will see I have a SOLIDWORKS file, and I brought this one in the other day. Open this one up, that will now be brought in. Now this is going through the cloud. So when I'm using this upload button, I'm actually uploading this part to the SOLIDWORKS file to the cloud where the converters are working, and that means that you always have the latest converters. This is if you have ever worked. So that's loading up here. If you have ever worked on an older CAD system and suddenly you come a couple of releases back, and then suddenly somebody gives you a newer file and you're like, I have like an outdated version of this CAD software and I can't bring that in. This resolves that. So in Fusion, the solvers, the translators are living up in the cloud. So when I use this upload button here and bring this file in, then coming in here, that has now been converted from a SOLIDWORKS file into a Fusion file and is now living up in the cloud. As soon as I open it up here, inside of my window, so we can look at it, now it's stored also locally for, in my case, for 15 days. If you are opening up, if you go and opening up STL files, for example, you can go up here to the insert and you can actually insert mesh from right in here. You can also insert SVGs and DXFs directly into this window, so you don't have to use this upload button here. What else do I want to talk about while we're in here? Oh, so you can also, if we want to save this file out, I got a question the other day about how to save, bring in a mesh file or STL file, save it out again as an ISO step. Click up here on the file drop down, and you will see if I export out of here, I can actually, in the drop down, instead of a SOLIDWORKS or a Fusion archive file, I could do IGES step files here. And I'm going to show you in a second how we can also save out other formats. But I think that that's important to understand how Fusion is literally utilizing the cloud just up to this point in a couple of pretty interesting formats, utilizing, if you're coming from an older CAD software, actually utilizing the cloud for file storage. But, you know, I ran into that problem at my last work where simply, when you are starting out with a CAD system, it never crosses your mind that one day you're going to have, you know, hundreds of thousands of customer files where you're gonna store all those. So that's one great thing about the cloud. The other thing is the converters up there, that they are always kept fresh because they're living up on the cloud. So you always have the latest translators for Fusion 360. And then this fact that your login with Fusion lets you get access to your files in the cloud. So you can, I've done this before, literally logged into a colleague's computer, use my login, and boom, it's like, it's like I'm at my computer. Even like shortcuts and things like that is brought in like that. One other tip I just want to give you before we're moving out of this. So people have seen in here that I have ended up having a lot of different projects. Be aware of there is actually a my recent data up here at the top. I know a lot of my colleagues uses this as a way to get to the files they have been working on lately. So if you double click on that, you will see all the latest files that I have had open in here. Most of them are live stream files, funny enough. But be aware of that one is sitting right up on top. That's a good one to know. Another thing that I find really great about using cloud versus older CAD software, and that is inside of Fusion. Let's open up this AeroPress mold. You will see that we have versions. Every time you're saving a file, it creates a version. This one here has 34 of them in here. Now, I've had a few people reaching out to me and asked me, how do I clean up these versions that I've saved? And honestly, you really kind of can't, and I don't know why you want to. I think that maybe it's just a perspective. I look at all the different versions inside in here. This is my undo stack, right? Like I can always go to a lower version and I can promote it forward. So I can bring this version 19 all the way up to the top, and now have that version 19. So think of this as an undo stack. Don't think about this as something you have to go in and clean up. I think that maybe maybe it's just perspective, but I used to do the same thing where I always felt like I had to clean up my designs in the end. But this is a great kind of like undo stack in here. Now, if you want to go through and kind of like look at the different versions, you could of course just open them all up. But there is actually another advantage to the whole cloud thing. Let's go and click on open details on the web here. And when I do that, window opens up on the on the screen. You get this view opening up here, and this is going to be of this mold here opened up in this viewer. And one thing I just want to point out, this viewer here is in a web browser. This is in the cloud. So if you send this to one of your customers, they can actually view this in a browser. They don't have to download some kind of a viewer. And again, I've tried that in the past, where you asked a customer to to view your project, to approve the project, and they were hung because they couldn't figure out how to download this viewer app. Well, this is right in the web browser that you can send them. And the way to send them that right from Fusion is literally just right click on the file here. Let's get out of right click on the file here and click share a public link. And if you do that, you can actually password protect it if you want to. But when they get this link, they will actually be viewing with this viewer. And you can do a couple of pretty awesome things with this viewer here. Of course, you can see I can kind of spin it around. You get some different things here. You can do like an exploded view of this, so we can kind of like explode it out, so we can kind of see the different components. You can do markups in here, what I think most people kind of like. You can save those markups as a kind of like a history in here. You can do some measurements. We can also literally do section views in here. So this is a really good way for a customer or you to kind of like review different things. But there's a couple of other things that you may not be aware of. See, if we look up here, there's our version number. So I've said this one like 34 times. Did you know if you click on that, not only are you also here getting all the different versions available, but there is actually right here in the cloud, there is a compare version. So if I click on this, I can actually compare different versions of this mold. And you might thinking, well, wait a minute, like what is going on again? Think about utilizing this. We're talking about this undo stack. If you had cleaned these versions up, you will never have a chance to kind of like review different details. So if I go back in here, maybe we go down and say we want to review from 34 to 22 and hit the compare button and just take a second here when it does its calculations, you will see that we actually get notified here that between version 22 and 34, 43 components was added, 8 was removed, and 2 components have been modified. Whoa! So this gives us kind of like a history of what happened between those versions. And we can actually fill this out. I can turn off the removed. I can turn on the things that was added in here. And if I click down here to result to tree, you can actually see all the different components. So the 43 components, if I click on one of them, it will actually zoom in on it, and it will give me some details about that specific component in here. Let's go and look at the ones that was removed. I actually click on this. I think I changed some screw length or something like that. it's recorded because it was saved in that version. So you can again click on them and you get a little notification what have happened in there. Another thing to know is, so when I've done this, that opens up this little menu down here, and you can actually kind of turn it on or off. So now we're back to kind of like our standard view as we did before. And if I click here, we can go back in and review this again. So this gives us kind of an option to look at this. We can also look at literally changes within models. So if I just close out of this, and let's go down. I know that I was good enough to add some comments. See, every time you're saving, you get asked to add a comment. So here you can see on number 9, I added a sprue design done. And then number 10, insert complete. So I inserted complete. If you compare those two, then you will see that we're ending up with these insert in here. But actually, something that's pretty cool. If we go in here and look at kind of what has been modified. Let's look at it from the top here, or the bottom, I guess. Zoom in a little bit. Look here. If I click on this that was modified, we have version 9 and version 10 in here. Notice what happens when I'm flipping between the two versions. So in version 9, I had made this insert. I know it's maybe a little bit hard to see, but I had made this version, and I had added some border channels. I don't even know if I can do. Let's see. Take that one there. Look at that. I had added some border channels, and in version 10, I actually added some ejector pins. And not only did I do those injector pins, I actually also ended up had to move this coolant line right here. So I get this data, and this is data that I can do right in the cloud instead of utilizing all the different resources inside of Fusion. So this is putting a lot less stress on your workstation, that you can go in and review these things on the cloud, and kind of see how that is working, or what changes that have been done. The next thing I want to show you is, let's get out of this compare here. If we go in and look at this part here, and this is in preview, but this is really like, how can we utilize the cloud better for the work we need to do? If we open up and look at this AeroPress kind of stir, and that was what the whole this mold does. By the way, I've done I've done a video on how I created that mold, if you're interested in it. So here we have actually the component that is inside of that mold that you just looked at. Also, be aware of that besides these, you can see here, there's also the different versions. So if we go back, we can look at the different versions in here too. Go back to version 2. Now, so not only can we compare it, we can actually look at the different versions. Here it looks like that I played a little bit with some plastic textures, and I hadn't added the logo. Again, the last version 10, don't have the plastic, but it has the logo on it. So you can review the versions. Another thing you can do is, I said before, you can export this out, and here's all the different formats you can export it out as. So again, Fusion kind of archive, Inventor, IGES, STEP, DWG, these different formats you can save it out right here from the cloud. So that is super helpful. You can of course also share it from here. So that's another helpful thing. The last thing I want to show you here, the last 5 minutes, is, and I don't know if you knew this, but we're actually previewing the browser version of Fusion. So I'm talking about that the desktop version is very much a hybrid, right? It kind of works, I call it a hybrid, because it saves locally, it can do different aspects. But did you know just takes a second here to connect, that Fusion actually can also run right in a browser. Now this is preview, so it's a little bit limited compared to this desktop version at this point. But this is just, you know, you can see we have the timeline down here in the bottom, and this is just kind of like, you know, exploring better ways for us to do the cloud. So you will see if you click on the model environment, right now we only have the model environment. We don't have the other ones available yet. But this is a fully kind of legit modeling place in here. If I open up a new, an empty document here, I don't know if you watched last night's live stream on Facebook where we modeled up a Lego piece. I will make sure that it comes up on YouTube here over the weekend. But you will see here that I'm in a desktop or in a browser right now, and I can actually go out here and I can actually start modeling up that Lego piece. Whoops. I can also make mistakes. That's good to know. I can model up this Lego piece right here, and work with this piece here. I maybe can't change this dimension. There we go. So this one is 31.8. There we go. So let's go ahead and extrude this. And that is going to be 9.6. So you will see here that inside of a browser here, we do have all the same tools, not all the tools, but we have some of these same tools that you're already familiar with. We can shell it out here. Let's open another sketch on the top here, this top face, and let's go in and draw a circle. So just so you're aware, I just want to make sure that you are aware of these different tools in the cloud and kind of how, you know, we are trying to really find some good ways to utilize the cloud for our kind of like advantage as we are going forward in the future, because, you know, we know that we're using it in so many other places, right? Let me just, now I gotta finish this one up at 2 minutes. So we hit the half an hour, 1.8, there is that top. We got the patterning is in here. Again, this is select the faces. Let's do some directions. We're gonna go in this direction. We're gonna go in this direction. Let's do 4 of these. So if you haven't been in here playing around with these desktop or these cloud tools, I definitely I think I'll recommend that you take a look at it. You know, that is pretty neat that in a web browser we're actually able to draw up this model. We're able to create that history tree, and of course we can click the save button and we can save that out as a file that we now can bring right in here into Fusion, and then we can work with it there. So this here, today's live stream, really just an attempt to give you a little bit of an idea about you know, when we were talking about Fusion as a cloud software, where does it kind of live? What can we do with it? And definitely a couple of things that I think, if you didn't know, that you can actually go up and you can compare your models on the cloud. That is absolutely valuable. And it also makes this whole version thing hopefully make a little bit more sense, you know, compared to what you've seen in the past with other software. That was 30 minutes. I hope you appreciate this. Tomorrow is Friday, so tomorrow we're going to talk about CAM. Excited about that. If you like these live streams, thumbs up. If you don't, thumbs down. That's okay. This is just an attempt to add a little bit more value to your Fusion experience. If you haven't already subscribed to the channel, I would truly appreciate if you do that. That is kind of like how I can tell my boss that you know, people are actually watching and they are also enjoying the content. If you're watching the recording, thank you so much for for taking the time to watch this. If you're in the live stream chat, I'm going to jump in and say hi to everybody. Until tomorrow, have an awesome day. Thank you so much.